Thank you for attending this urgent legal needs forum supporting Minnesota immigrant communities during a time of heightened need, hosted by the Minnesota State Bar Association and the Hennepin and Ramsey County Bar Associations. The session today is being recorded and will be available on the MSBA website. I'm Cynthia Anderson, Pro Bono Immigration Lead at Faegre, Drinker, Biddle, and Reith. It's an honor to be here with the brilliant colleagues you'll hear from today and with all of you. We have a full house today, capped at 500 participants. Your presence alone reflects a tremendous collective commitment to justice. So why are we here? We're here because of you, because you want to understand how to leverage your skills and legal expertise to expand access to justice for individuals who cannot afford legal representation in a rapidly shifting environment. As you all know, immigration and other needs are evolving daily, sometimes hourly, and all of us on the panel appreciate your patience as new pro bono initiatives are developed, piloted, and thoughtfully matched with volunteers. Responding effectively requires constant pivots as legal needs emerge and circumstances change. At the same time, building effective volunteer pathways for so many eager attorneys presents its own challenges in a moment of crisis. And it's important to remember that longstanding legal needs always outpace available pro bono resources. Your continued involvement in existing volunteer opportunities is essential so that we don't unintentionally create new gaps. You'll hear about several of those opportunities as well as many others today. When we look at the whole access to justice picture, it's clear that your engagement, whether in immigration, housing, domestic violence, or any other area, supports the stability of the entire legal safety net. If you're already experienced in naturalization, housing, or family law, maintaining that work is critical. Those needs are only growing as communities experience heightened stress and additional challenges in the current environment. It's all connected. Once again, thank you for your patience, your flexibility, and your sustained commitment as pro bono efforts evolve to meet challenging needs. We hope today's session helps you understand current opportunities, learn how to get involved, and begin honing your skills that can make an impact. And we hope it inspires your long-term commitment to equal justice in Minnesota. Our event code for today is 543601 and will be posted in the chat. The MSBA has applied for 1.5 standard CLE credits for this program. Glenn, you can move ahead on the slide. Please don't share individual client stories. Please don't share any confidential information. Please don't discuss topics not directly related to the provision of legal services. If you have questions, place them through the Q&A and we'll answer those questions either throughout the program or address them at the end. I'm turning this over now to our first panelist, Sarah Brennes from the Binger Center for New Americans. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sarah Brennes. I'm the Executive Director of the Binger Center for New Americans. And I'm here today to talk about a collaborative effort that we are working in partnership with law firms and our local nonprofits and Minnesota State Support to stand up the Minnesota Habeas Project. It's a collective of nonprofit legal service providers, our law school clinics, and pro bono law firms that are assisting unlawfully detained immigrants by connecting them to pro bono lawyers who can file habeas corpus petitions for them in federal court seeking their release from immigration detention. There's been an enormous response by rapid response initiatives to unlawful detentions here in Minnesota. So our project that we're working on in collaboration with a number of different partners is to really be a longer term solution to complement that work. Some of you may have been volunteering with groups including the Twin Cities Habeas Collective or with the AFL-CIO, who's been providing tremendous amount of help on the front end of this ongoing need for habeas representation. Our project is including a slightly broader scope and hoping to be a longer term support for individuals who might need habeas relief. So we include representation for individuals who may have been transferred out of Minnesota. So they may have been sent to detention facilities in Texas, Nebraska, other states. And we also include a number of different criteria in order to determine whether or not individuals might be eligible for habeas beyond some of the more narrow scope of some of the rapid response have really been able to produce results. The type of volunteers that we're looking for right now, there's been an enormous response already for volunteer attorneys to represent individuals in habeas. So primarily those that are engaged here on the front end or those who have federal litigation experience. Um, if you're admitted to the Federal District Court in Minnesota and have litigation experience, we can connect you with others who might be able to assist with filing in other states, for example. And we're also looking for immigration attorneys who can serve as the immigration law partners. We've soft launched the project right now and assisting individuals who have attorneys attached to their cases. So their attorneys or those that are working with them are completing the intakes. But we're meeting with community groups who are working with individuals who don't yet have attorneys. So we're also looking for volunteers who have immigration law experience and would be able to provide both consultation support to the habeas attorneys as well as advice and brief services, including potentially representation in bond hearings should that be ordered by the judge. So those are the two groups. We also have some opportunities for those who might be interested in doing background research or law students who might be interested in helping with researching habeas cases to support some of the volunteer attorneys. And hope to continue to grow the projects to respond to the ongoing need and make sure that we can assist non-citizens who've been unlawfully detained get back home to Minnesota.
Of course. Let's turn it over to Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. Danielle?
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Danielle Hendrickson. I'm the managing attorney of the Immigration Law Project at the Minneapolis office of Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. And first, I just want to say thank you so much to all of the individuals who have started volunteering, who have signed up to volunteer. We have been really encouraged in this very difficult time to see all of the people who've stepped up and have started volunteering. Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid is a civil legal service provider offering a wide variety of civil legal aid. We do housing, tax, youth law, senior law, benefits practice, and immigration is one of the areas in which we practice. And it's great that we have all of these different areas because we can holistically serve a lot of clients. And within the immigration arena, we have several different ways that volunteers can help. So through excuse me, through our detention visits, we work with several of the other providers in this call, and we coordinate visits to the detention centers where ICE detainees are located, and we screen individuals for relief options that they have from deportation, talk to them about how the immigration court process works, give them limited services if they are eligible for those, as well as the advice. And so we need volunteers who can come with us to those detention centers. We provide training, so you don't need to have prior experience. If you do speak another language, that can be helpful, but we also can provide interpreters for those visits. We also have been training volunteers to do those visits via phone. For those visits, you do have to be an attorney to set up that call. We have had such just an outpouring of volunteers that at this time we don't necessarily need more volunteers for those phone visits, and more of this would be focused on those in-person detention center visits. However, getting on our list allows us to be flexible if those needs change, or if we have additional calls that we need to make in the future. So we appreciate people expressing their interest in these programs. We also have a need for individual case representation. So especially with special immigrant juvenile status, we can place volunteer cases with individuals and naturalization, permanent residence for asylum, individuals with asylum and refugee status. So moving on to that next step of permanent residence. And so for those cases, we would actually take the individual application and place that with a volunteer to meet with a client, get that application filed, and fully represent in that case. Those cases as well, you don't need to have prior immigration experience. We would provide training and support. Again, a second language is always helpful, but not necessary. We would provide translation and interpretation services for those individuals taking cases as well. A need that we also see often is help with interpreting and translating. We can't represent everybody, and so providing really good pro se resources and materials to the community is something that we have been in collaboration with our other partners on this call, providing new resources and getting those interpreted and translated to the communities who need them can be difficult and costly. So if we have good volunteers who can help us with translating, that is really helpful. The other thing that we're seeing is that community members are in need of delegations of parental authorities and other documents that might need to be notarized, but people are afraid to leave their homes right now. And so another thing that we've been trying to provide clients is the opportunity for our attorneys and staff to go to their homes and notarize those. And so if someone is a notary and is willing to provide those services, that's another thing that we've been arranging volunteers to be a mobile notary and notarizing those documents. So the other thing is that a lot of these have been opportunities for attorneys. We're trying to find ways that paralegals can also be involved. So with our detention center work and our detention center calls, there's after those visits, there is sometimes advice letters and pro se packets that need to be mailed out. And so I've been working with volunteer paralegals to try to increase the expediency with which we can get that information out to individuals. So paralegals can also be tapped in as well as in the interpreting, translating, and notarizing of documents. And then if people are interested in volunteering, you can go to our website and sign up. You can go to the volunteer section of our website, sign up on the volunteer form, and then just indicate that you're interested in those immigration opportunities. And if you have any prior skills, any prior experience in immigration, or you have those specialized skills with notarizing and interpreting and translating, just indicate that on the volunteer form, and then we can place you in the appropriate place. You also will see there some of our other opportunities we have with tax law, special education, and some of our other practice areas. So if you feel like you have other expertise areas that you want to give, we have a lot of other opportunities outside of immigration as well. With that, I will pass it on to Lou.
Thanks, Danielle. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Lou, and I am the lead attorney, managing attorney of the Immigration Law Unit at Smurls. We serve the 5 metro counties and 33 southern counties in Minnesota. And we provide several legal services in the areas of family law, immigration law, housing, education, public benefits, consumer law. Some of our case priorities for our immigration law project, we handle crime victim cases, so VAWAs, U visas, T visas. We also represent clients with their adjustment applications for asylees and refugees. Can I get the next slide, please? Sorry. We also do naturalization cases, replacements of documents, work authorizations, I-751 removals of conditions for victims of DV. We also represent clients in N-600s who are derivatives of the naturalization cases that we represent on. The next slide, please.
Lou, can you pause for a second and maybe go back to the last slide and
Yeah,
just expand a little bit on UT and VAWA and what those are?
yeah. So if you are a victim of trafficking, you're eligible for a T visa. And it could be like labor trafficking. We have um, our agricultural workers project who handles a lot of our labor and trafficking cases. Um, if you are a victim of a crime, you may be eligible for a U visa, and that grants you status to work, and then eventually a path to lawful permanent residency. If you are a domestic violence victim and are married to a U.S. citizen, you may be eligible for a VAWA petition, and that will also grant you a pathway to lawful permanent residency.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Some of our current pro bono opportunities at Smurls, it- we have housing court clinics, and to be um, eligible to volunteer for housing court clinics, you have to be licensed in Minnesota. And the time commitment for the housing court clinics are 3 hours per clinic. Um, we also have guardianship actions. You just have to be a licensed attorney, and the requirement for that is 15 hours over several months. For our immigration opportunities, we have naturalization cases, so there's an opportunity to provide support, read services, advice, and even take on some naturalization cases. These cases are taking anywhere between 10 to 18 months right now. There is um, an adjudication, a processing pause on these applications, so it could be longer than that. But the expectation would be that if you're taking on the case, then you would file a G-28 and you would um, attend the naturalization interview with that client and make sure that they become citizens. The next slide, please. We also have opportunities to take on U visas. We've seen an increase in the U visa cases more than we have capacity to take on right now. And so we're looking for immigration attorneys who have experience handling U visas. And the time commitment would vary because there's different stages. So if you wanted to just handle the U visa certification portion of that stage, that would help just prepare the U visa certification and request that certification, and then we would be able to handle the rest. Or U visas right now are taking anywhere between 8 to 10 years. Um, it would be nice to have someone be able to take, but that's a huge commitment. And so we would look at maybe just having a volunteer attorney help prepare the U visa and file, and then make sure that the G-28 address is filed with our office so that we can keep that case with our office. We also have delegation of parental authority workshops and power of attorney workshops that we've been helping Target Council on. And we've been doing sessions all throughout the summer, but we've shifted that to home visits. And so you don't need a license to help with DOPAs. If you are a notary, that would be even better. Let's see, next slide.
I think, Lou, there's going to be some questions about paralegal participation throughout. So would DOPAs be a good place for that in your landscape?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
Thank you.
Um, if you are interested in volunteering, you can reach out to um, these emails. Also, you can submit an application through our website, and it's www.smurls.org. And if you don't hear back from someone, reach out to Valerie Snyder, who is our pro bono attorney with that project. Let's see. The next slide, please. Oops. I'm missing one of the slides, but it's okay. I just wanted to mention that there is training for the housing clinic. There's an hour-long training, and then we have mentorship and support available for some of the other opportunities. And I will hand it over to VLN.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Morgan Ritchie. I am an immigration project attorney at Volunteer Lawyers Network. First off, thank you everyone so much for your interest in supporting the community members most impacted by this recent surge in immigration enforcement. A little bit about VLN. We are a nonprofit that provide civil legal services to low-income Minnesotans throughout the state of Minnesota. We provide free legal advice, representation, education, and referrals to the individuals that we meet throughout our clinics, our intake system. We work primarily with volunteer attorneys who are able to help support these clients. We serve anyone who is below the 300% federal poverty level, and if they live in Minnesota, the clients that we are able to assist with fuller representation cases, their income guidelines can change, but we are able to provide at least advice and possibly brief services to a large amount of clients who are in need of services. Our legal services that we provide, we do have programs in bankruptcy, housing, family law, criminal expungement, immigration, and just our general civil program. Relating specifically to our immigration work, we do have several opportunities available for those who are experienced with immigration law, such as immigration relief screening and clinic consultations and advice. Many of our clients come through one of our community clinics or through our online or via our phone intake system. And we rely on volunteer attorneys to help screen those clients to see what sort of relief options they have available and if they are suitable for placement with a volunteer attorney. These options are available for remote work if that is of interest to you. We are also heavily involved with helping clients file for things on their own with the assistance of an attorney. And so we do have our Pro Se Assistance Program where we help clients apply for green card renewals, family petitions, work permits. The qualifications for that really depend on the type of case. We have immigration attorneys who serve as mentors, either through our VLN staff or other volunteers. And so if you do not have experience in those specific types of applications, you would have a mentor who is available to help you through that process. Some of the qualifications are that you have to be a Minnesota licensed attorney and just be familiar with working with clients of who are lower income. There can be some challenges, but VLN is happy to help you through those stages. We also have hearing representation where we are working with volunteer attorneys who are able to attend immigration court hearings with clients. These hearing topics can include things like bond and also voluntary departure requests. Voluntary departure is where a client is requesting to return home to their home country without having a deportation order. Given the recent enforcement, we've seen a huge surge in people who are interested in this, and attending immigration court can be very daunting. So having an attorney with them can really make a huge impact for clients. You do not need immigration experience for this. We are going to have training and also attorneys serving as volunteer mentors. We also have motion drafting. So if you're uninterested or located elsewhere, but still want to help as an attorney, you can meet with clients virtually and assist them with drafting motions for a voluntary departure or other sort of motions with immigration court. Again, you do not necessarily need to be an experienced immigration practitioner, as VLN will provide training. There would be a requirement that you would register with the immigration court, which is the Executive Office for Immigration Review, but that is something that VLN can walk you through. We also are doing random research projects as the needs of the community change. And so if this is something that law students are interested in, or even paralegals, we are looking for help with discrete research assignments, such as looking into country condition reports, information on CBP Home, which is an application that the Department of Homeland Security has been advertising a lot lately for the immigrant population. We're also trying to create Know Your Rights resources for clients. So there's some assistance or volunteer opportunities that would be very helpful if you are more comfortable with the research side of things. We also are partnering with our other nonprofit partners to do detention visits, where we are going to be assisting with brief services, such as helping people file asylum applications, starting the appeal process. If you are fluent in Spanish, that is a huge need right now. You don't necessarily need to be an attorney for that, but prior legal experience is helpful, but we are also able to train you up and make sure you're comfortable going into those situations. Finally, in the immigration realm, interpretation is also a critical need. Lots of people are very excited to help, but may not necessarily have the language capacity. And so if you are comfortable and fluent in a language, that is extremely helpful so that we can connect you with the clients in need of those services. Outside of the immigration realm, everything that is happening right now is going to cause additional legal problems outside of immigration. We do have a housing court clinics in Anoka, Hennepin, Ramsey counties, and those you are trained by our housing court team. It is a more of a I wouldn't say intensive, but it is more of a time commitment because we do ask you to commit to volunteering for a year and doing shifts. I believe it's once a month. But this is a great way to help our clients who are going to be impacted as folks have been afraid to leave home and go to work. We also have criminal expungement phone advice, which is a very nice introduction to helping clients and just give advice over the phone. So this is also a great way if you are not comfortable practicing in immigration law. In terms of getting connected with Volunteer Lawyers Network, we have an online application that you can fill out at vlnmn.org. We have both a volunteer application for attorneys and non-attorneys. And so after that, you are invited to one of our volunteer orientations, which we hold twice a month. And this is an opportunity for you to meet our staff and get connected to the projects that you are most passionate about and feel qualified to take on. Additionally, the needs have changed, as I'm sure they will be changing in the next few weeks and next month. So there are potentially different volunteer opportunities that will be coming up. So if you don't feel necessarily connected or passionate about one of the opportunities, I do encourage you to sign up as a volunteer because there might be something in the future that speaks to you. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Hannah at the Advocates.
All right. Thank you, Morgan. And hello to everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for, as Cindy said at the beginning, just your interest in pro bono support and in volunteering with our community and to support immigrants that are experiencing a lot of challenges in this moment. And it's always been a challenging field, but certainly more now than ever. And so really appreciate your interest in this and want to give an overview of kind of what we do, what some opportunities are to volunteer with us and what we see coming down the pike for you to keep an eye on as we continue to develop our response to Operation Metro Surge and the changes and challenges of this administration. Next slide, please. So I failed to introduce myself. I'm Hannah. I direct the Immigration Legal Services program at the Advocates. And the Advocates is a broader international human rights organization, and the Immigration Legal Services team focuses on the direct representation of immigrants in their immigration proceedings here in Minnesota. And we do that and all of our work through mobilization of volunteers. And so, since for 40 years, we've been working with pro bono volunteers to represent asylum seekers. And over the years have expanded our work to include unaccompanied children, trafficking survivors, and immigrants in detention as well. And so it's something we've been doing a long time and have a lot of different resources and opportunities for folks. And it's a way that not only does it expand the number of individuals we're able to support, but it also feeds right into our mission, which is that everybody has a part to play in defending human rights. And so want as many in our community to be involved as possible. As we've seen over the past month or two, that matters. That matters that, all of our community is standing up and doing what they can and what they feel they're able to give and participate in to defend human rights in our communities. And so excited to have everybody on this call here to kind of talk about those various opportunities for lawyers. As an overview, we cover the Minnesota. We are here in Minneapolis, and we cover the court at Fort Snelling at the Whipple Building, and the asylum office and USCIS office here in Minnesota. And what that means is that we work with clients that appear in that court or in that agency. And that is folks that live in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. And I saw the question in the chat, some parts of Western Wisconsin. This will be a deeply unsatisfying answer because the court and the asylum office, and we have not been able to figure out the exact boundary of where in Western Wisconsin people are sent to Fort Snelling or the Minnesota office and when they're sent elsewhere. And so basically, if their case is venued here in Minnesota, then we can help represent them because that's the expertise that we have. Excuse me.
Hannah, can I interrupt one quick second as long as you're addressing that question? Because that was one that was raised and you've got it right on point with your service area. Do you know of, because we may see a surge there, of who the referral organizations are in Wisconsin? And we can have others address too, but I think you guys are well poised to answer that.
Some, unfortunately, it's less robust than this particular group of nonprofits, but we always turn to, there's a website, immigrationlawhelp.org, that you can plug in where the person is or where they are detained, and get a list of organizations that work in that area and what exactly they do. So that's where we turn when someone is outside of our service area. So our core work, as I mentioned before, is asylum. That's what we've been doing for decades, and that is both the affirmative and removal asylum process. I want to note that you don't need to understand any of this before you sign up to work with us. We have volunteers that have been doing immigration forever and volunteers that have zero experience in immigration, and we are primed and ready to support anyone, no matter where they're at in their immigration experience journey. So just giving you an overview of what we do, but this will all be covered in an initial volunteer meeting with us if you do sign up. So the affirmative asylum process and a removal process are the two different ways that folks can get asylum here in the U.S. And the difference is mainly how that process proceeds. What is the advocacy like? Is it in court? Is it in the asylum office? Is there a prosecutor involved? Is there not? And so we go over all of these options with you so you can pick something that feels comfortable to you and the type of advocacy that you're comfortable engaging in. If you hate court, then we have options for you. If you don't like going to court, if you love it, we've got that too. So we also work with unaccompanied children and the various pathways that they can receive status in the United States. Some of those are in court as well or in the asylum office, and some of those are filling out and sending in forms, and there is no live or oral advocacy involved there. It often, special immigrant juvenile status is a great way for folks to get started because it tends to be the lowest time commitment, and you can kind of get things, get an understanding of an area of immigration law, kind of how this works, how these forms look, and it's usually like a 5 to 10 hour commitment, whereas an asylum case can be many years. So that can be a good place to get started. It's also a good opportunity for folks that are not licensed in Minnesota or not residing in Minnesota to participate because they won't need to do any in-person advocacy for SIJS cases. The same is true for T visas. So as Lou mentioned, that's the available pathway for people that have experienced trafficking in the United States, whether that's sex trafficking or labor trafficking. They are eligible for T visa, which is a pathway to permanent status and a green card. And that is also all done on the papers. And so that's another opportunity for people that are outside of Minnesota or that don't want to participate in in-person advocacy. That's a great opportunity for them to engage. And then immigrants in detention, that unfortunately covers all of the prior categories. Detention is really just where someone is and what human rights violations they're experiencing. And so we represent people in the first three categories that are in detention, but we also focus on trying to get them out of detention through bond and habeas applications. Excuse me. And along with other folks on this call are working with Sarah and the Binger Center to expand the Minnesota Habeas Project and be able to support volunteers through that as well. So if you volunteer with them, you are volunteering with us too, and that's wonderful. You can go on to the next slide. And just as a general kind of overview of some of the things we've been doing with volunteers this past month, it's been a long month, kind of outside of our normal core areas of work have been these two larger scale litigation. And just want to shout out the pro bono work that has gone into representing us on these cases. That's a huge lift and is also has a huge impact. So we have been plaintiffs in two lawsuits in the past month. One regarding the habeas corpus filings for refugees. That's, if you've heard the term Operation Paris, that's the government's focus on arresting and detaining refugees who have not yet gotten their green card, which is the next step in the process for them. So people that are refugees that are here with lawful refugee status and have no other reason to be detained by ICE except for that's what the government chose to do. That is the class essentially of this UHA v. Bondi lawsuit. And then there's us as well as organizational plaintiffs. So that is it loops into the habeas project as well, in that there were a lot of people at the beginning seeking habeas representation because they were refugees and were detained and moved to Texas. And we were working with a local law firm, Berger Montag, to file a lot of those lawsuits. And then this class action litigation was able to kind of take care of that whole group instead of filing individual refugee applications. So we're always sort of inventing and iterating and trying to figure out the best way to use the resources we have to make the largest impact in a responsible way that we can. And then the other one is advocates in LHMV DHS, et cetera, and that is surrounding the access to counsel or the lack thereof at the Whipple building in Fort Snelling. And just as a little bit of background, the Whipple building has been the place to process individuals that were detained by immigration. That has been true for ever since I've been doing this. And then typically they are, after being processed there, they are sometimes released and sometimes moved to another facility. And we have detention facilities in Minnesota that they are typically moved to. And those are some county jails that have contracts with ICE to hold individuals. with Operation Metro Surge, Whipple has been the center of a lot of attention because of the number of people that were held there, because of the length of time they were held there, because instead of moving people to Candy, Ojai County or Sherburne County, they were moving people quickly to Texas. And during this emergency, it was essentially impossible for attorneys to get through to clients and for clients to get to reach their attorneys. And so really interrupting their constitutional right to counsel. So that's what that lawsuit is about. And we got a TRO yesterday saying that actually, yes, the Constitution still does exist, and that the Department of Homeland Security needs to ensure that folks have access to counsel. So I just put this plug out there, one, to again celebrate the pro bono effort on this. Frederickson was the law firm representing us in that case, along with Democracy Forward Foundation. But also, if you, in the range of dates that I put right there, are trying to access anybody at the Whipple building and having trouble, please let us know. We want to make sure that we're tracking whether or not this TRO is, and the orders in the TRO are being followed, so that we can do our best to make sure they are. All right. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start off with our general work so that you know that we are always here and needing volunteer attorneys, and that we still continue to need volunteer attorneys in our long-term cases for full representation. And that's the best way to protect people, those individual clients over the long term, is to ensure that they have an attorney throughout the pendency of their immigration case. So that, if you are interested in that, please do sign up. And then we also know that that's not the only tool in the toolbox, I suppose. And so we've been working hard with partners on this call and elsewhere to figure out how to respond to emergencies in the immigration space. And I say emergencies kind of broadly. I think, certainly we would call what's been happening the last month or so to be an emergency. But it's, immigration has always been volatile and, a political hot button issue. And there's always some need for kind of large scale response. In the past couple of years, that has been has taken various forms, but one of the forms has been the large number of asylum seekers that were living in Minnesota, and oftentimes in overflow shelters in Hennepin County, maybe bused here from other cities, but just a large need for asylum representation on a scale that we could not support on a full-term, full rep basis. So working with hub partners, we stood up a limited representation clinics, advice, brief services, pro se filings, to try to move folks along in the process, hopefully get them a work permit so that they can find some stability here, and then maybe hire their own attorney, maybe come back to any of our organizations and seek full representation, but at least get them to the start line so that they can preserve those claims and have some stability here. So that I say that to say that there's almost always opportunities for limited representation with our organization and a lot of the other organizations. So when you sign up as a volunteer, just please be as open as you can be about like what your limitations are, as far as like, I don't think I can sign up for a 10-year project, but I have this to give. Like, is there anything that would be a good fit for me? We're used to being creative and trying to plug people in as best we can. So there are options for folks that don't have, that might have more limited capacity to take on full rep cases. We're also trying to plug folks in with our various clinics across the state. That tends to be a good opportunity for people that have immigration experience. But it could be that, if you're a volunteer in our organizations for a while and feeling more confident in your immigration knowledge, that could be a good way to provide some sort of brief services or emergency services as you've kind of gotten that expertise. Um, the Refugee Habeas Project was another way that we partnered with pro bonos to respond to the emergency need for habeas filings. I am sure that there are people on this call that signed up to volunteer with us for that project, and I'm super grateful for that. And also, due to the class action litigation, we ended up not needing as many volunteers in that as we anticipated. But please don't hear that we don't need volunteers. We do, and we will certainly be keeping you all posted as we have kind of larger scale projects and move along with the with the Minnesota Habeas Project, which is my next bullet. And I'll just keep going because I just mentioned that. And then, yeah, as I said, there's the Habeas Project, but there's also kind of other targeting of refugee communities and other communities in the state that where, full representation might not be available to us to be able to support. And so just want you to know it's something that we are all thinking through and planning for, and will keep you all posted for sure as we have opportunities to participate in that. We just want to make sure we have some of our systems in place before we, go out the gate. Cindy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to pause for 1 second and address a question that's coming up from multiple folks, and we'd planned to address at the end, but it might help people as a filter while they're listening to all of you. And that's about malpractice insurance coverage, which I can wholesale say that all of the nonprofit organizations for licensed attorneys carry for on behalf of their volunteers if they're not otherwise covered. But one question you might be able to answer, Hannah, is about that coverage as it relates to the Minnesota Habeas Project, given that it's housed under Binger, and how that might look or work right now. No,
That's a good question. And that is something that we are still figuring out as we're figuring out which organizations are taking on which pieces of the project, because there's a lot of parts and it's too much for one organization to do all of it. And we all have different expertise, so we want to be able to use those well. So that will depend. And that is something that we are very aware of. And it is also one of the reasons I think in the soft launch stage, it has been limited to folks that have malpractice insurance, because we did not have that sorted out yet. But it's something that we are aware of and committed to. And yeah, and for all of the cases, for anyone volunteering with us on any of our cases, all we need is a copy of your signed agreement with your client, and we are set to go. And you're covered under our malpractice insurance.
Thank you. And that's a great example of sort of stay tuned as things shift. There may be, if pieces of that move under the auspices of the nonprofit organizations, that answer to that question might change. So great example of how things are shifting.
They are. And we're trying to do our best to have things in order so that it works well and that everybody has what they need. And also, responding as quickly as we can, because we can't wait for everything to be perfect before we start filing things and doing what we can do. So we're building the plane as we're flying it, as we always are, and appreciate your patience as we do so. We have not forgotten about any of you, and really appreciate the support. Next, please. Okay, so I just want a little bit of overview of how the process works with us. When someone is interested in legal services through the advocates, we do an intake and screening to ensure that they qualify for our program and that they are a good fit for a volunteer. We also then have kind of our internal sort of I don't know if division is the right word, but a kind of scale, I suppose, of the complexity of the project, and are very clear when we're talking to volunteers, like what are some of the complexities in this case, so that folks can opt in and if they're brand new to this work, we try to pair them with a case that is a little bit that has fewer complexities, and then if they've been doing this for a while, are offering up some of those cases with a little bit more complexity. So just something that we're always very intentional and have one-on-one case placement for that reason, because we want people to be confident in their representation. We want clients to have great representation, and we want people to know what they're signing up for. So we intake and screen and then match with a volunteer. Once you are matched and go through conflicts, ensure that you don't have any conflicts with the client, you get access to a bunch of recorded trainings. We have some self-guided training platforms that are really helpful and intended for you to go back to as you're going through different parts of your case. If you're like, hey, I'm a year out from my hearing, I'm gonna go to the platform and see where I should be when I'm a year out from my hearing. And so that's intended for you to continue to go back to some samples and templates, written resources. We provide a lot of that from the get-go, and as you have needs as you go, it's impossible to predict everything that might come up in a case. So, feel free to reach out and say, hey, I need to do this. Do you have a sample or, can you provide me some guidance there? That being said, we have a dedicated attorney assigned to every case type, and so you will know who your attorney point of contact is when you receive your case. That person will answer any questions that you have, keep you up to date as changes occur in the immigration landscape that impact you, review any filings you want them to review, support you throughout the process. Really, whatever level of support you need in order to feel comfortable and confident, we are there to provide. And then as an overview, we just we have a monthly email with regular updates. And then, if there's an emergency that folks need to know about before that monthly email goes out, we send those out as well. We have monthly pro bono roundtables, so folks can ask questions and hear directly from some of our attorneys about some changes that impact them. And we do that so that you have that to look back on, and so that you can also sort of sift through. There's a lot going on in the immigration world, and we want you to know what things you need to pay attention to, and not feel like you need to, be reading Westlaw's new immigration cases every single day in order to be competent in your case.
Hannah, before we move from you, given how great the need has always been and will continue to be for asylum,
Mm-hmm.
if someone registers with your organization and indicates an interest in asylum representation, are you able to send them a recorded training fairly quickly so that they're not sort of, as you referenced, building the plane while flying it, so they could get trained up, feel comfortable, and then jump in for a case?
That is a good question. And it is going to reveal my lack of technological abilities, but I will check on exactly what you get an immediate email when you sign up to volunteer with us that offers an opportunity to meet with myself or our pro bono director so that we can kind of walk you through what the options are again, get to know you a little bit, understand what are some of the things that you're thinking about as you're deciding whether to take on a case. And I believe that intro email gives you access to the trainings. I don't know for sure. And if it doesn't, I will make sure that it does. It's definitely in the email once you place the case. And I will say too, we are really clear on timeline as well. So, if you have, you know, you're having a baby in a month and, want a case, or you can kind of get started right now and then take a few months off and come back to it. We keep all of that in mind, and are really working all the time to make sure that we're matching you with something that might work for you. So don't feel like you can, share whatever's on your mind, and we will do our best to talk through that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next slide. Okay, so who can help? Attorneys, for sure. You just have to be licensed somewhere in the United States. You don't need to be licensed in Minnesota. Immigration law is purely federal law, and so I practiced in New Jersey for a long time as a Minnesota attorney, and that was just fine, as long as you're licensed somewhere. Paralegals or legal support, we have some additional needs for intake, and some other non-attorney legal work that we can reach out to you about. If you are interested, you can just indicate it when you sign up that you're a paralegal or a non-attorney. Interpreters and translators, this is huge for us. If you are an attorney that isn't at a large law firm or employer that can support paid interpreters, we really do our best to work with volunteer interpreters and connect you with those volunteers. We have a large number of Spanish-speaking volunteers, but we always can use more competent volunteers to interpret and translate documents in a variety of languages. If you happen to speak Oromo on this call or know someone who does, please reach out. And it's just a really great way that we can engage a variety of volunteers and a variety of attorneys, regardless of where they work. Other useful skills. If you have an idea, please just tell me. We're happy to think through it. It might not be an immediate thing that we can mobilize right now. It might be, but we love to know. And, we are not the only ones with good ideas. So if you have an idea of some way you might be able to help or engage, please reach out. As I mentioned, the cases that you can take on can be full representation, they can be limited representation, motions practice, things like that, and rapid response. And so there's kind of a variety of ways that you can get involved depending on your timeline and what you currently have capacity to do. Next. Not me. And I will pass it over to Lakita at ILCM.
Thank you, Hannah, for that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Likita Vijay Kumar. I'm the Pro Bono Manager Attorney at Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending. I do know most of the all organizations have received an overwhelming response from volunteers. We're truly grateful and appreciative of this. Next slide, please. Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota, ILCM, we're a nonprofit organization. We serve immigrants and refugees throughout Minnesota. We also have an office in Fargo, North Dakota. So ILCM was founded in 1976 as Officina Legal. We became our own independent organization in 1996. And then we changed our name to Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota to reflect increasing diversity of the immigrant and refugee population that we serve. Our mission is to enhance opportunities for immigrants and refugees through free immigration legal representation for low-income individuals, and we also do through education and through advocacy efforts. We have a separate pro bono department that runs the pro bono program, through which volunteers have been able to serve over 400 clients every year. Next slide, please. So our legal services, we provide immigration legal assistance to a wide variety of clients. Some of them are DACA, which is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. We help in DACA applicants to renew their DACA status. We help with individuals detained by ICE, and we provide this assistance via our detention line. We help green card holders who intend to become citizens, helping with their naturalization application. Adjustment of status, which is green card for refugee and asylees. Special immigrant juvenile cases, that is, non-US citizen children who have experienced abuse, neglect, or abandonment. Temporary protected status. Non-US citizen survivors of domestic violence, that is removal of conditions, the Form I-751, and VAWA petitions, which is Violence Against Women's Act, and also non-US citizen survivors of human trafficking and violent crimes, that is the T and the U visa. Next slide. So Pro Bono project, as I mentioned earlier, we have a separate Pro Bono department and we take care of the Pro Bono projects. So the first Pro Bono project that is available for volunteers is the Citizenship Project. Next slide, please. So the Citizenship Project, which is naturalization, It is an administrative process through which lawful permanent residents, that is, green card holders, can gain citizenship in the United States. So, as a volunteer with ILCM's naturalization project, you can expect to work with people who have gained green card through refugee or asylee status, U visa, which is victim of a crime, Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, family-based petitions, diversity lottery applications, and others. So you will be meeting with individuals at the end of their immigration journey as they take this last step to become naturalized US citizen. So the naturalization process, it's an administrative process. It includes an in-person interview with an immigration officer. So the time commitment for full representation, I would say, is approximately 10 to 15 hours for a new pro bono attorney. Next slide, please. The next project that we have is DREAMer project, that is DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. This is a program that provides work authorization and deferred action to immigrant youths who have fulfilled certain educational requirements and meet other specified conditions. This was established in 2012, and DACA recipients continue to need help to renew their temporary status. Again, DACA application is an administrative process. We do not require the volunteers to have prior immigration experience or court experience. Immigration currently is processing and adjudicating DACA renewal status. So typically the case will require 5 to 7 hours for a new pro bono attorney. Next slide, please. So this is one of a new project. It's the biometrics project. We do require volunteers to accompany individuals to their scheduled biometrics appointment at the USCIS application support centers. The volunteer's responsibility will be to accompany the individual to their appointment, remain there, and assist the client in leaving the facility safely. We have seen a need for DACA applicants in this case. This is suitable for non-legal professionals too, paralegals or other individuals who want to provide support and be involved. This is a good fit. Next slide, please. The next is the FOIA request. FOIA is Freedom of Information Act. It's a federal law that gives the public the right to request access to records from US government agencies. So volunteers can help to file FOIA requests to any federal agency to request documents. There are different categories of FOIA. So the need will depend on the type of case. It's done case by case analysis, and then we will figure out what kind of FOIA is required for an applicant. It is an invaluable tool in immigration law, which will help the immigrant and the attorney to access a client's immigration history. We'll have access to their complete immigration records, which is very helpful. Volunteer qualifications. So we do expect full representation. We expect the volunteers to have an active and current license from a jurisdiction within United States, a phone number that can be used for client correspondence, a mailing address that can be used for case-related filings. So volunteer support, we do provide volunteer support throughout all pro bono matters, and those supports are pre-screened cases. We screen the case initially and then place it with the pro bono attorney. We do provide malpractice coverage. I know we see a lot of questions about that. We do provide free trainings and manuals. We have mentorship. If at any point you have question regarding a case, you want to discuss the case, you can always book one-on-one time with us and we can go over the case. We do provide interpretation and translation services if required. We work with external organizations for this. You will also have access to online casework resources. You can also use our office space for client meetings, and you can also use it to make copies of filings, use our postage, fax machines. You will also get CLE credit for training and pro bono casework. Next slide, please. So, how to get involved? So, you can go to our website, which is ilcm.org, and under that, there is a tab, Get Involved Pro Bono tab. You can sign up for our Pro Bono newsletter, which is sent out once a month, which will contain announcements about our upcoming trainings, new opportunities for volunteers with legal experience or with no prior experience. So you can keep that. And you can also email us at probono.coordinator@ilcm.org if you have any particular questions. So, how the process works is you can sign up for the newsletter. Usually, we do conduct trainings. And if you don't see a training on our website, you can email us. We will tell you about the upcoming training that is going to be scheduled, or we will send you a pre-recorded training. You can watch the training and email that you're comfortable and ready to take on a case. We will add you to the volunteer wait list. Once a case is ready to be placed, we will reach out to you with conflicts and case placement memo. Next slide. I think that's all from ILCM. Cindy?
Thank you. That was all fantastic information and so much information. So as everyone can see, there's lots of legal needs and lots of ways for you to get involved. There are a number of questions that we've held until the end so that we could just be clear about those instead of typing them into the chat and the Q&A. So let's run through a few of those. The first one is directed to the MSBA. Participants want to know if the slide deck will be sent to participants or where it might be available afterwards, if someone can answer that.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. This is from with the MSBA. Yes, we'll get a copy of the slides to all attendees after the program. Thank you.
Thank you. And if the other presenters want to come back on camera, some of the questions might be directed to you and we'll just all be present to be able to answer those. There's one about paralegal students. Are there opportunities among the pieces you discussed or other ideas for paralegal students to get involved, perhaps through the DOPA process or other opportunities?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about the opportunities at VLN. So paralegals would be able to register to volunteer with specific opportunities. Some of the things could be pro se drafting assistance, where then an attorney would review the filing prior to it. But that is certainly something that we've done in the past and something that we can continue and hope to continue to do in the future. So there are definitely opportunities with VLN where that is an accessible option. I will let the other orgs talk about their opportunities.
And that includes students, Morgan?
That does. That includes law students and even non-attorney, non-paralegal volunteers. There are limited circumstances if you are just a interested community member too.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, at Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, similarly, we have opportunities that those same opportunities that would be available to paralegals, I think could be open to paralegal students. So similar to what Morgan mentioned, like at our detention visits, we could have students, we have had law students join us in the past for those and paralegals as well. And then the work that they're doing is just supervised by an attorney. And then with some of those detention center visits and then the detention calls, we are having paralegals help with the follow-up work that's needed, sending out resources to individuals, and that could easily be done by a paralegal student as well. And then if that student is a notary, speaks another language, those opportunities could also be done by a student.
Great. That's really helpful. Thank you. Anyone else want to chime in on the paralegal question?
Yeah, we have the same opportunities as Danielle and
Okay.
Morgan as well. Yeah. And I think if you speak another language, it's a plus. You can shadow an attorney or a paralegal and attend a hearing as an interpreter, and also like in client meetings. So having a second language is a plus.
Great. Sounds like paralegals are very useful. Great. And then a question I think I know the answer to. I think all of you probably have pieces of projects, if not entire projects, where remote participation is available. Is that true? All of you just want to give a nod. Yeah, so Lakita, you.
Yeah, so some of the DACA renewal applicants are comfortable filing it online. So it's worked for us with volunteers in New York. So that works well. So if the client's comfortable to file it online and you don't reside here and are willing to provide remote legal service, that could work well. So.
Yeah, it seems like remote has become the commonplace option these days, including sometimes as a convenience to clients, even and certainly in greater Minnesota. So feel free to sign up and request that when you do sign up to volunteer. We have a really good segue question with about 15 minutes to go. And I think, well, there's a couple of general ones and then we'll segue. Are the MMLA in-person detention center visits all in the metro area?
So the detention centers in Minnesota are at the Sherburne County Jail and the Candy Ojai County Jail and the Freeborn County Jail. And so the ones that Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid is staffing is at the Sherburne County Jail, which is in Elk River, about a 45-minute drive from the metro area. We also Crow Wing County Jail has also started to house ICE detainees, and so we've also been starting to visit that facility as well. Other partners on the call, so ILCM and the advocates, are in charge of staffing visits to some of the other facilities, and so we collaboratively staff those visits and could use volunteers at any of those visits. But the two that are closest to the metro would be Sherburne and Freeborn County jails.
Great. Thank you, Danielle. One more just came in recently before we segue, and that is about the need for any legislative or lobbying assistance. I know all of you as nonprofits have certain parameters and limitations around lobbying and legislative work, but I think at least a couple of you, if not maybe all of you, have arms of work that do some legislative advocacy or not lobbying, but legislative advocacy. Does anyone want to take a stab at talking about needs in those areas?
I can just say that I put my email in the chat as well as Teresa's email. If you have interest in that, you could reach out to Teresa. I'm not sure what the needs are right now, but definitely worth having a conversation with our advocacy folks.
Great, thank you. ILCM, do you have thoughts about that? You have an advocacy department, I know.
Yeah, we do. So I can put my email in the chat and connect with them and connect the person with Julia Decker, who's our lobbyist. So she would be the right person to talk.
Perfect.
And Minnesota Legal Aid also has the Legal Services Advocacy Project, which is our advocacy wing. Sorry, just saw a chat question that was about MMLA. So they would potentially have volunteer opportunities. I know that we have had volunteers in the past help with research related to advocacy efforts, kind of comparing and contrasting laws in Minnesota versus other states. So that I know is one way that we have used volunteers in our advocacy work.
Great. Do you want to address, Danielle, the Wilmer detention question that's in the chat?
Yes. So Wilmer is the county seat of Candy Ojai County, and that is where the Candy Ojai County detention center is, the Candy Ojai County Jail. So let me just see. Right. So our Wilmer and St. Cloud offices previously did not have their own designated attorneys doing detention work, but through like the collaborative work that we do, we cover detention visits at all of those facilities. And so there are visits happening at Candy Ojai County. And we now do have capacity to do representation in Wilmer and at Candy Ojai County, but it's actually not MMLA that's the one in charge of that. So Hannah, if you
Yeah.
want to take that question.
I mean, if you reach out to any of us, we can put you in touch with the right people.
Yeah.
You don't need to like know the ins and outs of, of how we cover stuff, but just to kind of we do as a collaborative cover Candy Ojai County. One of the reasons that the Sherburne County facility has been the focus of engaging volunteers is just the way that the jail is set up and how they let us operate there. We in Freeborn County, for example, where we only have access to one room, one attorney meeting room at a time. So bringing a big team of volunteers is not really all that useful. And Candy Ojai County is also just one-on-one meetings. So there is some engagement possibilities for like a couple of folks at a time, but not a ton. And Sherburne, we're able to kind of work with a lot more volunteers.
They allow us to have a big open space, and so we're able to like have it be more of like a clinic or set it up in like a clinic model.
And we're exploring how best to do some of it remotely too. It has its own complexities, but that's something we're looking into.
Great. Well, let's head a little bit towards what's on the horizon and wrap up so that people can leave with some very concrete ideas about how to get involved. But with regards to what's on the horizon, there's a very well poised question as a segue here about now that we've heard Metro Surge is ending or likely to be ending, at least to some extent, what's on the horizon? What's the anticipated impact in needs and clients? Do we think the cases are going to go back to some sort of normal? I'm not sure when there was a normal anymore, but you know, it's a very valid question in terms of needs and what's on the horizon. We can talk more about specific needs, but what are we thinking in terms of just this decline, perhaps in Operation Surge? To put you on the spot.
Yeah. We'll see. I think I'm a person that always lives with hope for the future and fights for that, but I also think that we have there's a lot of different. I think that this administration is just trying out different things, and so that was one of the efforts that the anti-immigrant efforts that they used most recently. We know that they have their eye on asylum. We know that they have their eye on the Somali community, and so there's just different emergencies that we're responding to all the time, and so I really hope that we see a large decrease in ICE, ERO presence, CBP presence in the Twin Cities and across the state. But there were thousands of people that were arrested and still need habeas representation. There's people that are still being targeted, even though the number of agents has theoretically decreased. So I think that's part of our jobs is just pivoting to all of the different things thrown at us. And I, hope folks all want to get involved in legislative advocacy. Like we can push for a better system. But for the most part, when there have been these sort of negative changes, the rebound it has just kind of stopped. It hasn't like rebounded back to something really great. It has just been like, all right, we're not going any further down that road. So that's not the sunniest answer, but I think we're just expecting and preparing for something different.
Thank you for that, Hannah. Any additional comments there? You wrapped that up really nicely, but if others want to chime in. Great. I think, but let's just take a couple of minutes. You guys have all referred to your collaboration together. I think this group in attendance here is a very engaged group, and they are learning and tracking together with you all. And there may be some interest in understanding what you all are doing in addition to the work of each of your individual organizations, but how you're now functioning as a collaborative under what was at least formerly known as the Immigration Hub, and kind of where that's at and what the vision for that is.
So, yeah, so the Immigration Hub, for those who aren't aware, is a collaborative model between 5 legal services organizations represented here today. So we have the Advocates for Human Rights, Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota, SMIRLS, VLN, and Minnesota Legal Aid. And together we're working on increasing access to immigration legal representation throughout the state of Minnesota, and really building on all of the individual strengths each of our organization has to build out a network throughout the state so that people can get the help that they need when they need it, and being really adaptive and responsive to the needs that pop up, and being able to triage and respond rapidly in the moment. And so we're working on collaborating on new processes for how we're referring amongst our organizations and how we're developing new resources. So as mentioned earlier, we've created a bunch of new resources that are available on Law Help MN, and working on getting those translated and being available to community, collaborating to do outreach and presentations to the community, which is also another great way that people could be involved we haven't talked about yet. But if you are available to help us fill some of those outreach requests. And then additionally, we are out in greater Minnesota. So a lot of our organizations are headquartered in the metro area, but there are people throughout the state of Minnesota who need legal representation. And so in last year, we were tasked with having 12 legal clinics in greater Minnesota, and we had 19 that we scheduled. We actually had more than that were hub sponsored, but we had 19 clinics in greater Minnesota. I can't remember what Catherine said the number. We helped like over 500 people, I think, in greater Minnesota through those clinics. And being available in the moment to help people understand what is the immigration court process. How do I change my address with immigration? What is the best referral for me if I need help with asylum, if I need help with special immigrant juvenile status. So for 2026, we're working on adapting that model to be even more available to folks, and also recognizing that people don't feel safe necessarily coming in person, and looking at how could we pivot to a hybrid model. We're working right now on getting feedback from community organizations and stakeholders to see what that looks like. But it's really, we're hoping, going to open up the availability of pro bono opportunities for people who are interested in being available to those communities in greater Minnesota. And the goal is to have 2 hybrid clinics each month on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month, where we can be available to folks in greater Minnesota to come and ask. It's open-ended. We don't have a specific topic for these clinics, but they can come and get legal advice. And if we're able to pivot to that model, as I mentioned, we have an opportunity for folks to volunteer and be trained to give that legal advice, kind of building off of the process that VLN is perfecting right now. So I'll turn over if anyone else wants to say more, but that's what we're doing.
Great. Thank you for that, Danielle. I know I put you on the spot a little bit there, but I think this group in particular, with their depth of interest, is probably very excited to learn about the collaborations you and others are having across the state to sort of be as efficient and as effective as we can with the delivery of services and how your expertise all works together. So thanks for that quick description. And I think we'll be looking to hear more about the Immigration Hub as you guys develop your infrastructures. The other thing I just want to touch on quickly before we move to closing comments as we look at things on the horizon, and I know you gave a nice overview of sort of what, we don't know. On the other hand, I think one thing we do know is that Operation Paris is perhaps here to stay in terms of its revetting of refugees, and Minnesota is indeed a hub and center for refugee communities. So I think while we are not exactly sure what that's going to look like, we have seen a little bit about what it looks like to date, and that may pivot and shift depending on government approaches. But I do think that is something that those interested in volunteering, if they get engaged now, may be hearing more about in the days and weeks to come as we develop responses. And there are ongoing active conversations about responses now to the needs of refugees. I would reiterate again that asylum help is always needed, and so to the extent you can get trained up, that would be helpful. Glenn, I think we can advance the slide and just do a couple of minutes of wrap up here so that we can summarize how do people get started quickly. First off, whenever we talk to attorneys, we know that attorneys and paralegals and others are well connected to others in their communities and schools and churches, and others will be asking you how to get help. So we wanted to make sure that you know the best one-stop shop right now in Minnesota. If you encounter folks that need help, you can direct inquiries or for information about how to get help to the Law Help website located on this slide on your screen, lawhelpmn.org. There are connections to these organizations and others. There are also good community resource materials on that page that are extremely important to get out to community members ahead of time so that they're best prepared about how to react to ICE raids or other immigration issues, or how to get help if they think they might qualify for legal status. Next slide, I think. Yeah, we did questions. We skipped that slide out of order. We don't need to take that one, so you can go ahead and move on. But getting involved. As we close up today, we want to leave you with some very clear steps so that you know what to do after receiving so much information today. If you forget it all, the first thing you need to do is register as a volunteer with one or even all of the organizations here so that you can stay updated and find the best fit for you. Feel free to reach out to any of their websites to get started. Watch for their follow-up communications. You heard about newsletters, you heard about websites and other community outreach activities. So watch for their follow-up communications so that you can see as things change how to get involved. Stay alert to updates about new opportunities, and then begin training now. You don't have something in your hand right now to train with, so we are very happy to give you on the next slide a couple of ways to get started right away. Honing skills that are imperative for this work. They're not extra skills, they're required. If you're going to work with immigrant communities, you need to also know how to work with interpreters if you're not bilingual, and you need to know how to work with folks who've faced trauma in their lives. Taking those skills seriously will make you successful when you get involved with one of the pro bono projects you heard about today. So if you want to take steps right now, you can look at the website here for for PLI, who also has scholarships if you are doing pro bono work. I think that maybe is our last slide, Glenn. If we want to go to, I think, the next one, we just want to take a quick second before we conclude to express sincere appreciation for all of the panelists who are so busy all day and working overtime for sharing their expertise, experience, and time today. Thank you also to the bar associations for pulling us together in these efforts, and specifically to Megan McKenney of my office, who did some very last minute PowerPoint editing for us today. And then thank you specifically to every single one of you here today for your time, interest, and dedication to access to justice. We know that your commitment strengthens our legal communities and provides critical support to individuals who need it most. We're grateful you chose to spend your time with us today, and we look forward to working alongside you in the days and weeks ahead.